Israel and Hamas have agreed to extend a temporary truce for another 24 hours, minutes before it was set to expire. On Thursday, negotiations extended those conversations. They came down to the wire over last-minute disagreements in regards to the hostages to be freed by Hamas and those Palestinian prisoners who would be exchanged. The truce has been extended under the same terms as the past, which includes Hamas releasing 10 Israeli hostages per day in exchange for 30 Palestinian prisoners. Joining us now to discuss the latest on the ceasefire, the return of Israeli hostages, and what's next in Israel's war against Hamas is Major Doron Speilman, spokesperson for the Israeli Defense Forces. Major Speilman, thank you very much for joining us on Forum Daily.
Thank you very much for having me.
We know that the truce has been extended for another 24 hours. Can you give us any indication on the likelihood of a ceasefire continuing to be extended and continuing to see the process of more of those hostages return home?
Certainly from the Israeli side, there is a willingness for the ceasefire to continue only really for one reason, which is to bring our people home, the same people that were taken from us. Now it's been well over 55 days that were yanked out of their beds in the middle of the night, early in the morning. The babies, the women, and the men who've been sitting in Gaza this entire time. If it wasn't for them being in Gaza, we would have continued to move forward with our military operations, because Hamas, which committed this atrocity, has got to be eliminated. And we had them exactly with their backs against the wall when they all of a sudden offered this hostage deal. And when this is over, we'll continue to proceed with our military operations against Hamas. That is the current situation. And as long as this framework holds and 10 living Israeli hostages come home, we're willing at the moment to pause our military objectives.
And on those hostages who've been released, what condition are they in when they're handed over to the IDF, or what are they saying were the conditions that they were held in?
Well, as we can imagine, being underneath the ground for 50 plus days with very little sunlight, being held by captors, sleeping across chairs, being given one meal a day, while physically some of them are in fair shape, some of them have been taken to intensive care. Mentally and in terms of their psychological state, there's a long road ahead of them. They're having trouble seeing. They have malnutrition. They've lost an enormous amount of weight. We have children who, as one of her parents, Emily Hand's father, said, she keeps saying to him every time he speaks, shh, you have to keep your voice down, Dad. And the reason is that the captors kept these people constantly underground, hushing them. But they're the ones we managed to get home, and we'll be able to deal with these cases. It will take years of recovery. Unfortunately, many of those people will never come home. There are people who've died in captivity by Hamas. There, of course, were scores of people that died before they reached captivity. But it is Hamas's responsibility. Every person that left Israel alive, Hamas needs to return to Israel alive. The responsibility is totally at their feet.
And of course, one of those hostages is the 10-month-old baby boy, Gifir Bibas. There were reports that that child, his brother, and his parents were killed in Gaza while they were in captivity. Is the IDF able to verify that claim?
This is still has not been verified at this moment. The Bibas family and that little 10-year-old boy whose name is Kfir, who spent his 10th month of life as a hostage in the Gaza Strip, it blows everyone's mind. What is a 10-month-old child doing in captivity? We have the pictures. The last scene of them was with their mother, Shiri, holding Kfir and his little brother, against her chest, being taken off, terrorized in Gaza. And the hearts of our people are with the family. We followed the progress. The entire country knows them as the two little redheaded boys. They're just a beautiful little family, and they've become the symbol of really the abject cruelty that Hamas exhibited on the Israeli people. And we're hoping that Hamas's claims that they've been killed are not true, and we're really hoping that we will have them home soon.
We're back on Forum Daily. Major Speilman, has any progress been made in regards to Red Cross visits for those hostages who are still in Gaza to provide them with any medical care they may need?
Sadly, there has been no progress made. This is really the most elemental of requests, where the whole goal, the raison d'etre of the Red Cross, is to check on the medical status of people, especially people who do not have options, who've been taken and been abducted and dragged to Gaza from the very beginning, going back 55 days. The Israeli government, those families that are living in a state of terror, not knowing the medical situation of their families, have been begging the Red Cross to insist to have access to their loved ones. And to date, we've had no access from the Red Cross. And this is something that we've said. We're calling on the international community, either the Red Cross or another human rights international organization. We have to insist that they see these hostages and offer them immediate medical care. One of the hostages that returned, we understand that there were reports that she never received the needed medications that she needed. That was not handed over to her, not by the Red Cross and not by anyone else. And she's in a very weakened state, and her life is actually at risk. Can we imagine if there were Canadian or other hostages in that country or on the border of their country, the overwhelming international pressure that would be exerted on the Red Cross to find those people and be allowed in? We're asking at least for the same dignity and the same request to be given to these hostages, which come from many countries and are of all ages, and for it to be done immediately.
I want to go back to something you mentioned before the break in terms of continuing the military operation. A lot of people are concerned, obviously, about civilian deaths in Gaza. And while we know that most of the civilian death totals are coming from Hamas-run organizations, does the IDF have any indication on the number of Hamas militants you've killed or an estimation on the ratio of militants to civilians killed?
It's very difficult to ascertain at this point. It's really, to give an accurate answer to that question, somebody needs to be on the ground in the Gaza Strip. We're sure of one thing, that the Hamas run health ministry, I mean, if there's ever been a larger oxymoron than saying the Hamas run health ministry, that they've been reporting these numbers. And as we've seen, the numbers that they reported, for instance, in the Al Ahli hospital, which was an attack that they carried out and was proven that they blamed on us. Initially, they claimed 500 or 600 people were dead, and other independent reports came back and said that it was less than half that. So we know we can't trust their numbers, but imagine, without being there on the ground and being able to count and go into a morgue, go into hospital to understand, it's almost impossible to verify. What I can tell you,
I was just going to follow up on the civilian issue, because part of the military campaign started in the north, and the Israeli Defense Forces, in the opinion of many people, did the very noble thing, and they warned people to flee. If the campaign moves to the south, where will these people go, given that Egypt has said that they will not take any refugees and has even gone so far as to say that they would put the military at the border to prevent them from doing so?
As you mentioned, there seem to be no options. No one has opened their door for these people or offered any helpful solutions whatsoever. From our perspective, we know that we cannot go to sleep at night knowing that Hamas exists at all, and especially exists in the Gaza Strip on the border of our communities. They are embedding themselves within civilian communities. They did so in the north, which is why we launched our military campaign in the north. And like you said, asked the people from the north to head south. They are now emboldened after this 7 days of relative quiet. They have re-embedded themselves in the south amidst that civilian population. The easiest thing for the IDF to do, and what any country would do, is to bomb Hamas from the air. The issue is we are trying to minimize civilian casualties as much as possible. The best that we can do is to try to move these people out of the way. It is not comfortable. They can be moved towards the Mahli humanitarian zone. It is a small zone, and there are a lot of people in Gaza. The conditions are not great. They're not life-threatening, but it is better than being in the line of fire. The answer to this situation could be solved very easily. International pressure on Hamas. You started this war. You've cowardly hid underneath civilians. Immediately remove yourself from civilians. Let's put the civilians in safety and stand up would fight the IDF with the same courage you showed by slaughtering our innocent civilians. That is the message that we need to send to Hamas, you, me, and the entire world. Leave these civilians alone, stand up and fight if you have any honor left in you.
Major Speilman, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you.